Welcome back, everyone. Here we are in another Pulse training session. It's been a little while, about a month, since we gathered together. Thank you, and I hope you had a beautiful couple wave spells in the last cycles. Today we are entering the field of the magnetic monkey to play with magic, the essence and the energy of existence, to return to a childlike state of discovery where we can once again realize from the depths of who we are the magic within us and the gifts that we have to give to this world. I'm Adam Apollo, and today we're focused on the wizard archetype. And the wizard archetype, for those of you who have dove deeply into Mastery Ring 1, is all about accessing the creative will and the source of our mental structures of consciousness. When I say mental structures of consciousness, what I'm talking about is the forms that our ideas take, the geometries of our mind, the containers that we place around objects and things and projects and plans that become the conduits for how energy flows through that work in the world. If we don't have a good container, we cannot be a good conduit for energy. If you don't have a cup, you can't put water in it. If you don't create a channel, if you pour water on a surface, it goes everywhere. We have a need to mobilize how our energy is moving and focus it in order to accomplish certain goals in our lives. For many of us, we enter the space of the wizard from the place where we have had a lot of thinking. We've had all of these ideas. We've had all of these concepts, these different projects, these different things that excite us, different knowledge bases, different metaphysical bases that inspire us and get us thinking about things. And many times, all of these different elements of things that we have surrounded ourselves with in our minds become this lattice-like puzzle work in which many of the pieces of the puzzle are not yet put together. And they're all different components of what we want to be the one puzzle that is us. They're all different things that stimulate the emergence of who we are. And yet, in our fields, they're still scattered. They still are forming different components of a puzzle that's not yet put together. And so, one of the key practices for the wizard is learning how to get to the place where you're above the puzzle, where you're not actually lost in the pile of pieces, where your shell and your field of the mental body is not fragmented, but aligned around a core resource and a core way of stacking and interconnecting the different things and principles that are part of who you are. And that means connecting ideas that are your puzzle pieces into the puzzle that is you and who you are. Now, that might seem like an abstract and confusing way to approach this, but I invite you to recognize that every idea you've ever had, every thought that has come into your head, and every single insight that's ever come to you is a part of your soul's story. It's a part of the stream of your essence and your being. Now, the first thing that comes up for a lot of people with this is, but what about the thoughts that I have that are like not so cool? What about that thought I had about that? Well, there are many thoughts that we have that we resist because we don't understand why we're having them. We don't understand where they're coming from. And yes, we do have thoughts that are unethical sometimes. We do have thoughts that are painful. We have thoughts that are glimpses of horrors that we've seen. And when our thoughts are things that we bind up around, that we get caught in, that we get triggered by, and then we judge ourselves, or we become afraid, or we start resisting, we start going into fight or flight mode, then we're not accessing that deeper current that is actually the purpose of the thought in the first place. And if the thought's not yours, if the thought is something that's in the field, that's moving and traveling, that's coming from somebody else in your vicinity, that's coming from someone you have a deep connection with, then if you're instantly resisting the thought, you're never going to see where it came from. You're not going to be able to acknowledge and recognize what the source flow of the energy of that thought is and why it has come to you and what it's about. And so relaxing into the space where every thought that we have is acknowledged as part of the stream of our existence allows us to look at the thoughts as they're floating down the river and really identify how they're moving through the currents and see where that energy and that flow is coming from. Many times it may be from us, a part of us, an organ inside of our bodies. Sometimes it may be coming from somebody else in our field or in our relationships. And sometimes it's coming from our ancient past, deep beyond the boundaries of this incarnation and across time, where we are entering an echo state in our lives where certain environmental and social circumstances have created a similar vibrational field to the vibrational field that we experienced in another time, in another life. And so the memory of that experience is surfaced because the interference pattern of ourselves and our environment is matching the interference pattern of that memory. So the way that we are navigating through the movement of frequencies in our lives is very, very much determined by how much we're holding on to or allowing the flow of thoughts and memories that are arising for us. If we get caught in the whirlpools, we cannot flow. If we drop a dam or block the river with rocks, we cannot flow. And if we are trying really hard to pull all the puzzle pieces together in our mind, we cannot flow. We have to allow that every one of these puzzle pieces is going to align, that they're in a stream that is us. We are the ultimate integrators. We will bring everything back together. It is just part of our destiny. But we think, no, there's no way this and this is ever going to connect. How many of you out there have, at a point in your life, reached a certain stage where you're like, oh my gosh, the stuff that I thought had no point that I was doing 10 years ago that I never thought would come back around again, all of a sudden it's back. And now I understand how it fits into these other things. If you've had this kind of experience where the past suddenly gained massive relevance in your present, just show me your hand. Yeah. So we know that things will take on a purpose and that there's nothing that we do, there's nothing that happens in our life path and in our trajectory that is without this purpose. There's nothing that's free from this flow of our soul stream in terms of how we are integrating who we are and becoming who we are. every moment, every idea, every single thing is part of the perfection that is you. Okay. So how do we then take different ideas, different constructs, different mental approaches to things and unify them into the core structure of us so that we remember them more easily, so that we can embody it more easily, so that we can start to subconsciously and internally integrate and process the different things that we're interested in? Well, it's like a maelstrom. You know, you've got all this stuff in a storm that's moving and flowing around you, and you're trying to bring it into a state of coherence at the core. And the core coherence that you're looking for is actually the different aspects of how you perceive yourself. All right. So to go into that piece, let's start very simply. What ideas around you, what different concepts that you've had, or things that you're interested in, or books that you're reading, or practices that you're doing, which of these things are connected to your perception of your physical body and your experience of your physical being? Just take a moment right now and just reflect. In your life, are there things you're learning, ideas you have, stuff that you want to do? Maybe you want to go to the gym more. Maybe you've been thinking about that yoga class. Maybe you've been just picking up a book that's about like certain ways of moving your body. Just consider in your life, what are the different things that are connected to how you are connected to your body? And as you just reflect in the awareness of those different things, I want you to feel like you're sitting on top of all those ideas. Like, let's put those ideas right where they belong. Let's get them right there in the root chakra. Like you're sitting on them. Like, there you are. You know that's going to happen. You know you're going to do some yoga. You know you're going to work out at the gym. You know you're going to practice the things in that book, and you want to do it. You want to feel it in your legs. You want to feel it in your body. You want to get it into the physical. And when you're dealing with ideas like that, it really helps to actually physically feel like you're embodying the idea. How do you get these ideas into your body? Through your root chakra, in and through the way that you actually incarnate yourself into your body in every moment. Right? Does that make sense? Now, that's not the only field that we have in our lives. So there are also things that occur, that happen, that are moving and are flowing for us in our lives, and they are emotional experiences. And we have a vehicle in our bodies that's designed to accommodate emotional experience. So while we sometimes try to, again, mental container, we try to put mental containers around things around us. And some things we stuff on the sides, some things we're like, I don't want to look at that yet, etc. How do we bring it into the stream? Well, okay, here's this thing, there's a person that you need to talk to, and the situation is highly emotionally charged. You're going to have to deal with it. So often what we do is we like, I'm going to have to deal with that, but I don't want to think about it now. Where do you put it? The thought form is energy, right? The thought form is actually a structural energy field. It's got tons of emotion in it. And when you're just like, I don't want to think about that right now, well, guess what? You just put it right here. And then it's just hanging out right there. You know, every once in a while you're going to bang into it, you know, or it's going to drag around and it's going to smash into things. It's like setting a planet in orbit around your body, right? And then you try to put it way over there, but then what's going to happen? It's going to attract back to you because it's part of what's going on in your field of experience. You're resisting the river. So how do you not resist the river? Okay, person, thought, serious emotional thing going on with that. I'm going to need to deal with that. Okay. All right. Well, let's accept the fact that that is a deep and powerful emotional field, and literally let the emotional engine that is your sacral chakra right down here, let that emotional engine start processing it, because it's going to get a lot further down the road if you actually let yourself start feeling the stuff that is part of those feelings. It might only take you an extra 5 minutes to actually really deal with it in that moment. And it means literally allowing, here's that field, it's got a big emotion, I don't know if I want to deal with it right now. Well, guess what? You don't have to solve the problem of it. You don't have to fix it, right? Acknowledge the feminine aspects of it, bring it into your sacral chakra, and just feel for a second, God, I'm so upset about that. Like, I don't even know how I'm going to deal with that. And breathe, let your body breathe it. Let yourself feel it in the emotional field. And you'll recognize that because you put it down here, because you actually leveraged it in your emotional center, your mind is not taken over by it. So you're feeling it, but you still are in the space where your mental engine has clarity. And from the space of clarity with your mind, witnessing and holding space for the waves of emotion going on in your sacral, and your body sitting in and really allowing it to ground and anchor that charge through feeling it inside of you instead of over here, now you have a coherent way to deal with the situation. Now a clarity around the situation will emerge. Your integrative capacity is greatly magnified. Okay, so now let's go to the mental level. We're dealing with thoughts, we're dealing with ideas, we're dealing with these different things, you want to archetype sets, or like different contacts, that we're connecting with, or, special kinds of practices, or, the positive energy thing that you're working on, the candle that you want to light, all the different possible archetypes of things that we think of and process around and are trying to figure out. And what do I do about this? And how am I going to deal with my taxes? And how is this going to work out? And what am I going to do when this happens? Like, we've got all these standing questions all the time, right? They're always there. You may not acknowledge them all the time, but there's a lot of things you haven't figured out yet in your life. And most of the things you haven't figured out yet, you've got scattered around, and you want to know what it looks like? It looks like a messy room. It's like a messy desk, or a messy room. It's like you've got all these different things and you haven't figured out what to do with them yet. So there's a stack of the business cards over here. There's a stack of the papers over here and the mail over here, and you've got this stack going on over here. You got all these stacks. And you're like, one of these days I'm going to get to figure out how to deal with all of this stuff. I'm going to find it, right? And so you've got all these stacks, and they're all outside of you, and you're not really looking at them all. You're not really dealing with them all. You're not really facing them all, because you don't think you have time. You don't know how to put it into the flow of priorities. You haven't got that part figured out yet. So how are you going to figure out the rest of it? Well, you have an innate engine of prioritization and will that is part of your being. called your solar plexus. Now, do you think the sun is constantly trying to figure out the exact angular momentum of all of the planets that are traveling around it? Like, do you think the sun has to determine exactly how its electromagnetic field is going to shift in order to like circulate all of the energy that's going on inside of it and, you know, keep it alive and fuse the hydrogen into helium and, you know, go through all these processes? No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to think about all of them. And think about for a second, here you go, there's another thought for you, I'll throw into your field. Think for a second about the times when your mind has been most precise and on it and unbelievably brilliant and dialed. You know those moments where you're just like, oh my gosh, I could just like anything. Like, give me a question in the universe, I will crunch it. It's like God mind. Well, when you've had those moments, were you trying to think of this and think of that and think about how that fits with that and think about how this fits with this and think about how that? No, generally not. Generally, there's no stack. There's no piles. You're not dealing with a bunch of funk and junk. You're not even looking at junk. You're literally in a moment.
That's so mysterious that black is sort of a deep and heavy.
Gonna just mute you, Miss Oliphant. Welcome. So when you're in that state, you are lining up thoughts one after another. You're literally just, and it doesn't require a great deal of effort or energy, does it? It's actually an experience of witnessing yourself being brilliant. You're like, wow. Many of us have had this experience when you've been, say, like writing an email, or you're like writing a paper at school, and you're working on this paper, or you're working on this thing, and all of a sudden you're just in this flow, and it's like you're realizing the ideas as they're happening and as they're fitting together, and you're watching the puzzle fall into place in this incredible state of perfection. That experience is oriented around being in your power center and being fully connected to the very center of all of the field of your solar system. And when you go to the center point, when you sit in that spot of the sun, you're basically just going like, boom, I am radiating my being. And the more solid you're grounded in your body, the more open and flowing your sacral, emotional field is, the more grounded you are, the more open your sacral is, the more energy and anchoring capacity your solar plexus has. And so you may have piles and piles of stuff. You might have all of these different things out here. But what you're going to do right now is you're going to sit in that spot of that power, and you're going to acknowledge that all of those piles are already all in the perfect position, that everything is actually already in orbit around you. In other words, you're changing the context of there's this outside thing that I have to do that I haven't dealt with, to this outside thing is a part of my solar system, which I already have command over. You're choosing to take power over the thing instead of letting the thing overpower you. And you're saying, nope, that mess is intentional. That mess is a moment that I will be approaching soon. I will be going through this pile, and I'm going to understand something more deeply about myself because I'm going through this pile. And I know that I'm going to find things in this pile that are really important to me right now. and I'm going to realize I waited just the perfect amount of time to give myself a really good lesson. Do you feel that? It's claiming it. It's saying, I've got this. I'm claiming this. In the same way as your sacral requires that deep surrender to saying, okay, I'm going to just feel this now. This is big. I'm just going to let that flow. I'm going to let it in, let it flow. The mind and the mental body, it wants you to say, I got this. I'm in command of this. I am choosing the perfection in this. I may not fully understand it yet. I may not fully grasp all the details of it. That doesn't matter. I'm integrating it. It is part of me. I am mastering this. It is part of me. It's not outside. I'm in the discovery process. My mind is unfolding the puzzle right now. I am discovering the essence of how the gene keys interconnect with the dream spell right now. You are doing this for the truth. You are finding it. You're accessing the next part of your destiny, the next part of your gift, the next part of your understanding. You're doing it. When you allow it that it's part of you, when you say, this is a part of me, this is me, because that is the one thing you always have power of. You always have control over who you are and what you are. That's your one big sovereign right in the world. You can't control all the things out there. You can control what is you, what you are choosing to be responsible for, and how you are responsible for it. Okay, so we just built 3 points in the stack. All right, 4th level, relationships. Now, in direct and exacting contrast to the level that the solar plexus requires you to claim all the things that you are responsible for into your own being, the heart requires you likewise to allow and relinquish the things that belong to others to them. How can you love if you can't give it away? What is love? It is giving, right? Love is an expression. It is saying, you have this. You, I love you. Go here. Have my energy. Have your energy. Have your universe. The greatest love that we can give is to see and acknowledge someone else in their divine nature. The divine love is literally seeing somebody else as the infinite, eternal expressing itself through them. You ever have somebody project on you? You know, when it's like they put their idea of what they think you are on you, and you can feel it. It's like, just get that off of me already. Like, I don't need your projection on me. That's solar plexus. That's them thinking that they have to take responsibility for how you are and what you are. So they're literally claiming you as the thing that they're being responsible for themselves, to teach themselves a lesson about judgment, right? It doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't do anything good for the relationship. But through the heart, you're saying, no, actually, I want to see you and discover you as the essence of everything that you are. You can't make piles out of people in your mind. You have to give the people back to the people. Acknowledge that they are this divine, beautiful essence that is there, that has more to share than you'll ever know. You will never, ever, 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 ever get to the bottom of the well of any other person in your life. Even if you think, oh, that's it. That was a shallow pool. Guess what? You're wrong. You're wrong. There's more to them than you can ever, 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 ever imagine or access. They are a literal embodiment of the divine mystery for you. Now, if you think that just because they like football and they like to drink beer, and they go to work and they do this repetitive menial thing, and then they come home and that's what they want to do. They want to watch football and drink beer and have dinner, go to bed, wake up the next day, do that. You think that that's all that they are and that's all that's going on for them? You're incredibly wrong. And the problem for them is that they're also incredibly blind to all the parts of themselves. They've gotten lost and they've filled all the things that they're afraid of dealing with about who they really are with all of these menial things in order to continue ignoring it. So they don't have to accept who they are. But the moment you hang out with somebody that's in that zone and in that space, and you're like, wait, like, you're like a Roman centurion. What's your deal? Like, why are you just chilling? Like, aren't you supposed to freaking lead some stuff? Like, what happened to your, like, you know, you'll see, as soon as you see the slivers of the power and the majesty in them, they will start to see it too. And it will send a little crack into that puzzle that they've, you know, that wall that they built between them and the mirror of looking at who they actually are. And they'll suddenly start experiencing themselves for who they actually are. And once that happens, it's just like triggering a little tumble of the snowball. and you know, they can resist it for a long time. You know, lots of alcohol, lots of drugs. These things will definitely resist the snowball. But in actuality, their life will continue no matter what, in concert with that little push that you did, which you're part of their life doing this, by the way, the fact that you exist in their life. Like, in concert with that, their life will continue to constantly try to drive a disruption to the false program that they've put over themselves in order to get them to move towards their destiny. Over and over again. It's not like we have to break the spell on all of humanity. The humanity's essence is trying to break the spell. It is breaking the spell all the time. It's just breaking the spell and breaking their bodies or breaking their mental structures or breaking their whatever. It's breaking them because they're throwing themselves against the wall and they're not going through it the easiest way. There's much, much easier ways. And love is one of the keys. Love is one of the keys. It's about us actually recognizing and acknowledging each other as the gift. As the gift for us to see ourselves, as the gift for God, Spirit, the infinite, whatever you want to call it, to teach us. It's the gift for us to not only know more about ourselves, to see each other in each other's power, but also to recognize, as we see someone else as being divine, as we see somebody else in their perfection and their honor, to look back down here and say, well, how much am I doing that for me? How much am I acknowledging that for me? Or is it the other way around? Maybe you're real good at acknowledging how amazing you are and you're knocking over chalices everywhere you go because you're the man. You've got the skills. You're the magi. You control the universe, don't you? That's pretty funny. Yeah, well, you are in command of your universe. And every other person is in command of theirs. And until you reconcile that, the wizard is lost in the tower. And then when you reconcile that, the wizard becomes a wizard of love. The wizard realizes, I must go out into the world. I cannot just work on and study alchemy and magic in my tower forever. I must come out into the world and acknowledge all of these other magi. I must help them, steward with them, create with them. Let's make this world better together. So the heart has to be able to hold the self and love the self, love and shine that light downward to our minds, our thoughts, love and compassion for our thoughts and our mind, love and compassion for our feelings and who we are, love and compassion for our bodies and what we are here embodied as. And it has to give up and give love to every other being out there as being different and being separate and being sovereign and being individual. They are who they are. Let them be them. Let their issues be their issues. It's not yours. You can't control it, but you can love them for it. You can love them through it. You can use the light of your love to see through their own mental blocks and shadows and, emotional, stuff they've got up, and love all the way down through until you're loving the core of who they really are, which is infinite and is a mystery. And it is an amazing thing to discover if you have the opportunity to discover it and find out who they are. So that's how the heart does it. It frees the field, frees it out there, and it frees it in here. And it frees it through loving internally and externally and allowing those two directions to flow. All right. And then there's communication. Yes. So, well, words. So many words. I just fill your ears with words. All these words. What's the point? Words, meanings. Maybe I will somehow get my meanings to you so that you can discover your meanings for yourself and share your meaning back to me, which then somehow completes my meaning. And that works out pretty good. So for the throat and for communication and this layer of our being, you can think of it as cultural coherence, right? When I am approaching or connecting with another being where they're very different from me. So I'm white and I'm blonde and, generally have an American accent. And, grew up in certain kinds of life situations and places, and you put me with somebody that's very, very different. I have some great Eastern European friends, so I'm not going to pick on them too much, but I'll just say, I'll just pick someone like that. Maybe I seem very, very different from at the surface, but I'm actually very similar to, like someone from Moldova. And so I'm hanging out with this Moldovan, and in the process, I'm recognizing like our accents sound different, our body language is different. Our emphasis is on different words, our ways of communicating are just different, right? And I could choose to try to fit them and their way of communicating into the box of my bubble culturally and say, well, they're terrible at English. Right? Like, they must be dumb because they're not very good at English, or their accent, it's so gugunga, it's like guttural. It's not high Latin, meskin dieter, yeah? Like, but what am I doing? I'm trying to stuff somebody else's deep culture and nature and context into my own box of what I think is appealing or best or whatever because of my cultural context, right? And we do this all the time. I mean, everybody does this. You can say, oh yeah, California girls, right? You know, or whatever. Or you'd be like, oh yeah, like hip hop people or hippies. Oh yeah, yeah, no, deadheads, you know, or like, oh, they're Irish, right? Like we do this. We put these different things in. Oh, that makes sense. He's Irish, so of course he's gonna drink a lot and eat potatoes. Like, no, that's a bunch of bullshit. That has nothing to do with Irish culture. It has nothing to do with the Irish. It has nothing to do with the essence of that, or necessarily that person or that individual. And so oftentimes our cultural frame, our sociocultural frame, is literally like a projection of language and judgment at a much higher level, where literally what's happening down here is we've come up with these thoughts and beliefs about certain people, and now we're assigning that to those people, and now we're communicating to those people as if they are inside of that box. But we can break it down from the other way. If we listen to what someone's saying and we acknowledge in how they're communicating the beauty in it. If we listen to people's root language, like, okay, stop talking English to me. Just speak to me in your language. Doesn't matter if I understand it. Just speak to me in your language. I want to hear you. I want to feel you. Notice how if they drop into their own language and they're just streaming at you with their language and they're speaking, you're going to be like, wow, that is amazing. Like just the way that you architected all of those sounds, and it's so fluid and it's so like, you know, or it's so rich and it's so deep. It's got part of their core. It's got part of who they are resonant in it. And that informs your heart in seeing them for the essence of who they are. And likewise, finding your own core language, your own core way of expressing, whether that's in English or it's shinya thea, torondiatari, tiwahaninere amor kandia, tiestura menetira nahwatantia, nahlim yehe, nahlim yehente. If that's your language, then let it out. Let it flow and let it express itself through you. Find where your core language is, because inherent in your core language is part of the architecture of your soul stream. Literally. When we feel blocked in the words inside of us, usually we're blocked because we have not told ourselves the truth. We have not listened and respected the truth in others. And the more that we respect and listen to others and respect and listen to the truth in ourselves, the more powerful our stream of communication becomes. Through our bodies, through our voices, through our words, through our resonance. And we come into the power and the beauty of what it means to come into cultural coherence with others, to be our own culture and be with others in other cultures, and to see how those cultures are interconnected and woven together as part of a greater story, a greater integration that's not just ours, it's ours. So, bring in the cultures, bring it into your throat. Listen to them. Watch their videos, listen to their language. Don't just blow it off because you don't understand it. Listen to it, let it in. Let in all those languages, let in all that communication, and allow yourself to just receive it and process it, to understand people deeper, to go deeper into our collective communion with each other. Now, the same thing occurs with the third eye, except that with the third eye, it's not sounds. It's not words. It's not vocalized. It's what's in the field of feeling. It's looking in someone's eyes and sensing that there is a deeper emotion, that there is a deeper essence to what's going on for them. You can look at the throat and the third eye and the crown as all like windows into truly how to see someone as their divine nature outside of you. And each of these vehicles, the heart and up, they have engines and processing that's designed to support us internally, individually. But they also have vehicles designed to support how we interconnect with each other. And so half of the third eye's vehicle is designed to support the witnessing and the seeing of our own psychic mystery, our own discovery process, our own intuitive process in receiving the signals and the flows from the universe and our universal guidance system that guide us personally in our life path. And the other half is about seeing and acknowledging and witnessing the journey that other people are on and what their flow is and what their feeling is and how their rivers are moving. So you're getting above from this place all of the different soul streams and where all those soul streams are going. Whereas this is helping to bridge the soul streams and bridge connections. This is helping to see those soul streams in the greater span of time and start to get a context for the great movement of essence through existence. Many of us tend to get headaches when we are having a hard time processing the emotional process of somebody else. We don't want to necessarily feel all that they're feeling, but we are empathic and we can't help but feel some of what they're feeling. What we don't always realize is that we think that because we're empathic and we feel what they're feeling, we don't want to feel all that they're feeling, and we don't want to be overwhelmed by all that they're feeling, that the feelings are all theirs. They're not. The feelings are usually ours too. Usually it's the feelings that they have trigger and magnify feelings that we already have that we may not be acknowledging. And when that magnification happens, we're now experiencing more of our own emotions while also experiencing the other person's emotions. And so we want to turn that down, but we try to turn that down by not wanting to look at what they're feeling. I don't want to be in your whole mess. So you put up a block wall, but you're still feeling it. Right? Doesn't help. And then you're blocking your own field of seeing and feeling what's happening here. And so, just like with the sacral, you must allow them to feel all the way what they're feeling, while also allowing you to feel all the stuff you're feeling. And that's going to both be happening. And the beauty of these higher chakras is that you can tune in to, is there a higher space? Is there a feeling above these feelings that we're having that is more clear, is more true, right? Because maybe you're just experiencing anger, but behind that anger, maybe there's some fear. And behind that fear, maybe there's this place of hurt and sadness. Maybe there's a pain from the past. Maybe there's a time of betrayal. Maybe there's something that caused this stack of emotions to form. And so it's like a higher access point. And the same thing is true of language. When I'm speaking the truth to you and you're listening, or you're speaking the truth to me and I'm listening, sometimes we're on the same page. But sometimes there's a higher page that we can access. There's a higher third point where both of us come into coherence that already exists. It's already there. We're just trying to find where that is and what that is. And as we're emotionally connecting with others. It's finding that higher emotional field. Where is the place really where all of this is coming from? And how is that connected between us? How is that something that we share? How is it some way that we can understand and know each other better by accessing? And when you reach for that higher state, when you reach for that point where there's already communion, even though you don't know what it is, that point where you understand the person, even though they speak a different language, that point where you can really acknowledge what somebody else is going through, even if you don't understand it. When you reach for that point, what you're doing energetically in your being is you're reaching through the crown. You're reaching into the crown, because the crown is literally like a gate to how all perceptions encompass each other. It's the higher mind. And so just like the third eye is the higher collective emotional state, and just like the throat is the collective physical state of how we communicate structurally, culturally, etc., with each other, the crown is the higher mental state, where it's as if you took your sun and you suddenly realized that your sun is part of all the suns in the galaxies, part of all the galaxies in, the galaxy cluster, is part of all the galactic clusters in the whole universe, is part of all the universes in the whole multiverse. And you suddenly acknowledge that infinite petals of the spiral, that it goes on and on and on and on forever. And that you actually cannot find the end of it. That there isn't a stopping point. There isn't a highest level. That doesn't exist. It's where your mind walks up to the gate of the infinite and says, I surrender. Okay. All right. And in that surrender, the mind is able to then open itself, dilating like an eyeball. And when the mind dilates like an eyeball, it lets more light in. So it's like you're looking into this brilliant light of potential, possibility. You don't understand it. You don't know what it is. You don't know the answer for how you can understand this person and you don't speak their language. You don't know the answer for what it is that you and the other person, need, where you need to meet in a middle ground. You don't have all of these answers because you don't. It's a mystery. You don't know everything about the other person. You don't. And so what you're doing is you're opening yourself to discovery. You're opening yourself to the possibility and to the understanding of what can be there. And that asking for an opening to what is beyond what you already know is the like, and that surrender to the mystery is a huge nourishment for what's going on down here inside of yourself. Because inside yourself, you're I'm commanding, I've got it, I'm this, that, and that, yes, and I'm feeling all the feelings, and I'm in my body and all that, but you're like going to be like trying to be in responsibility and in command and claiming all of these things. But you know what? There's going to be a lot that you can't. You won't. I made it sound easy, but it's not that easy always. There are oftentimes, many times, you can claim a lot of the things that are going on in your field, and then there's a lot that you just can't. You don't know how to wrap your head around it, your arms around it, your energy around it. And so when you've pulled as much as you can into the solar plexus, when you've tried to integrate as much as possible and you're still at your edge, that is when you surrender. That is when you recognize there is more to this. And And that is the guidance that brought the peace of all of this is in its perfect place. All of this is already in its perfection. Where does that come from? That comes from this insight. It comes from the crown saying, you know what? I got you. Universe has got you. God has got you. There is a plan. There is an essence. We've got this thing down. It's okay. It's all going to be perfect. It's all going to work out. And that little piece of it's all going to work out. It's all going to be okay. I don't understand it. I'm receiving it. I'm opening to what it looks like. It just informs that emotional field. It informs your voice. It informs your heart. It informs your mind. It informs your emotions. It informs your body. It changes everything. It's a light that fills your whole being. And it's the very, very reason why all of the avatars and all of the high gurus and the magi, they just say, oh, just pray to God. What they mean is just say, please, infinite essence, bless me. I don't know. I don't know the answer. There's a reason for that surrender. And that reason of the surrender to something as if it's a higher power, as if it's outside of you, is just putting yourself in a condition to receive, right? And this is a major problem that a lot of the New Age world has, because, you know, a lot of people coming into greater states of realization and greater states of self-acknowledgement, you go, maybe you entered divine realization state. Maybe you had a God realization experience. Maybe you accessed the point where you realize, my God, I am the infinite. I am it. I am the one. We're all one. Holy cow. It's true. And it's real. And it's like, it's me. And then the responsibility sinks in. And you're like, wait, am I sure? Does that mean I'm responsible for like, oh, you know, and then some people go into full on Messiah complex mode. And it's like, I'm God, so I've just created this, and I must have created the Holocaust, and I did all of this, and now it's up to me because I'm the one, and I'm the Neo, and I have to change the whole world. I've got to be the one to do it. I am the one. I had the realization that I'm God. So I must be the one responsible for all of this. And then that leads to, you know, egotism and power controls and power struggles and issues in relationship, because then you're projecting on everybody else that they're part of your dream instead of acknowledging that they are their infinite dream too. You know, there's all these catches in the field. There's all these little tricks in the process of self-realization and awakening. And, you know, in the end, in the beginning, in the wherever, at some point in that stage, I'll just say, you must realize that everybody else is God and that you're God. And you must surrender that there's also the beyond, which means it's not you, it's not them, it's not even in the field, you don't even understand it, and it's beyond that too. And then you're surrendered to the truth, the real reality, which is like, you are, they are, this is, all of it, and it's all freaking perfect, and it's amazing. And it totally is perceived as imperfect all the time, because that's part of space-time dynamic. And there's a tension between the perfect and imperfect, which is causing all events to unfold. And all of these things are just going on, you know, as we're just brushing our teeth and going through life. So to pull the puzzle pieces of yourself back together, bring them into your Jed. This is the work of the Jedi. It's reintegrating all these parts of your life and integrating them as you, as part of your vehicle and your body. And this is the key to all manifestation and magic. This is the key to everything that you could possibly ever want to do. But in particular, it's a very, very critical key for your mind. Because as much as our minds are powerful, as much as being a wizard archetype, if that's your core or if that's one of your strong ones, is powerful. It's powerful to claim responsibility. It's powerful to command the things in your life as being parts of the spell that you're weaving. It's powerful to structure and strategize and line up the field to make a manifestation happen. While all of these things are powerful experiences, they do not allow us to encompass the totality of our being. And it is only when our minds are willing to open to the acknowledgement of the other aspects of our other vehicles that our mind begins to function in its mechanism as a support system, not as the dominator, not as the one in control of everything, but as an aspect of our command structure. It lets our mind play its role and support us in that role as much as possible. And it doesn't put it in the captain's seat, because it's not. It really wants to be the captain. But it doesn't know how all the parts of the ship work. It doesn't. There's parts of the ship that are beyond the mind, but they're parts of your ship. It's still part of you. So your soul stream, your soul essence, your nature, your truth of your being traveling through time, that's the captain. You're the captain, the essence of you. Your mind is your incredibly powerful computer system that's there to support you in calculating all of the stuff that you need to calculate to get from vector A to B. And when you're trying to get there, you're going to use your mind to get there. But it's not you. It's not the all of you. It's a part of you. And accepting that and working with that and helping the mind to accept that is both, as Kaja says, humbleness and power at the same time. And that's where we're trying to get to, the power and the humility, the command and responsibility and the total openness, the acceptance of our own feelings and the allowance of the feelings of others, the expressions of truth and the receiving of truth, the loving ourselves and letting others be who they are, and letting it all be. All right. Well, that was a good session. Thank you guys for letting me talk for an hour and 10 minutes. It was wonderful having you all listen and be present. And it's always such a pleasure to connect with you all and have this wonderful time. Tomorrow, as always, there's a roundtable session. You guys are welcome to come in and connect with each other. I unfortunately will not be here for the roundtable tomorrow. But I know that probably Jade will be, and some of the other crew of Jade will be at work. So if any of you want to just connect with each other more deeply, the roundtables are there for that. And it's a beautiful time to just drop in and link up. They're always at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and they're always the day after the Pulse training sessions. Yeah, and then of course we have probably another Pulse coming up. The next one is on July 1st, and I'm hoping we're going to be able to do that one. I will be traveling and in Colorado at that time. So hopefully we can make that Pulse happen. I will be letting you guys know. And in any case, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for being here, and thanks for supporting the Pulse training sessions.